you're going to see early engagement. And I think,
goodness.
I think Crine sometimes tries to hold it back a little bit, and that's why he puts in these bad performances, because he doesn't let himself be himself and the player he wants to be.
Okay, and we're taking a live look at the play area right now. We're moving into the map ban phase. So tell me what you're both thinking here, Jess.
I mean, Coastline going off the board. A lot of APAC teams like Coastline, so if some people who don't know CAG very well are going to be like, whoa, why do they get rid of Coastline? Well, for Cyclops specifically, not one of their best maps by any means, but getting rid of Chalet, yeah, I'd probably get rid of that too if I was Rogue.
It's one of them. They started off a UL Stage 3 on Chalet. They liked that map, and it kind of deteriorated after that on that map. So, and as well, just coming back to the Coastline ban, Coastline is one of Rogue's favourite maps, so it's no surprise to see that one taken away.
Absolutely, and Clubhouse, we love a good old Clubhouse. It's almost like if you were to pick a map in the entire competitive map pool, and you're like, we can really identify who's the best team, we go on this map. However, Rogue will have to get rid of the Monty. I don't care what else they ban in all of the other bans, but they must get rid of the Monty on that map. Then it's an even Steven matchup. If they don't, I don't know, but it's their map pick.
All right, we are taking a live look at the play area again, and I'm shocked. They don't seem nervous. Everyone seems like pretty relaxed right now. So, I mean, predictions. How do we think this is going to go? We already know what Fresh picks. Jess, what about you? Off of his coin toss.
Yeah, you're not getting an opinion now. In any expert way, your coin was the expert for you. Looking at the maps being Oregon, Clubhouse, and the decider being Villa, I'm looking over to, Rogue on Villa. I don't have anything, throughout this event or in recent times. And then I look over to Cyclops as well. And, I mean, Villa's not a map that they've shied away from. They've beaten people in the quals for it. I just don't know how much weight I want to put on that.
Okay, well, our teams are ready, everyone. So Liquid versus SSG, then Cyclops versus Rogue. Take it away, casters.
Everybody, and welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us here on the B stream. My name is Untitled Chapter, joined here by Fluke, and we have got a banging game coming right up. We have got Cyclops and we have got Rogue. This, by all accounts, is one that we have been really looking forward to playing. Cyclops, we haven't seen them play yet. This is the moment. This is the real time where we get to find out, what are they going to do?
If you've never seen Cyclops play, it's so exciting. The confidence, and it was pointed out there by Jackie, all the players look like they're having a good time because that's Cyclops, whatever the weather. This is 5 players. They love playing Siege, and they play a really good brand of Siege that at the start nobody could really deal with. It was when APAC had first started to rebuild itself after the old Fnatic and Norarengo days, and it was very exciting, it was thrilling, and it was, above all, so much fun.
And that's what we really want to be here for. We want to be here for fun games. We think back to games that Cyclops have given us in the past, and they always give us a good run of things. Rogue, on the other hand, they didn't look great yesterday, a little bit lackluster, and I think this is their time really to just show that it wasn't a blip. There was a blip, and that they're actually going to be able to bounce back, but it is by no means going to be an easy game for them at all.
Cyclops, see? The big C. I like how they did it with their hand as well. It's a very easy one to do.
It's quite an easy gang sign to throw up,
It's an easy C. It's an easy C to throw up, and, they're still getting over. We saw a little bit of a... It's a hand warmer.
A secret weapon.
It's a secret weapon. Keep your hands warm. Is he getting a second one? Or is he struggling? Now the camera's on him. We're not going to find out. We'll never know. That's Rogue. It's a harder one to throw up as a gang sign.
You'd struggle.
You'd struggle. Is this if you try it? No hand warmers, but good energy.
Pockets.
Nice. This is some tricks. This is the game, by the way.
How many times can you spin your mouse?
Who can do the best thing on camera?
It's Bolo's quite good at, I think.
Yeah. Have we had any classic clips yet?
What do you mean?
I mean, every SI or every major, there's people that play with the camera. They get more confidence. And I guess I'm always looking for the highlight reels. Show us some more magic tricks that we saw on these screens. 59% to 41%. Preference to Cyclops. This is 2 factors. 1, Cyclops has a lot of fans. Cyclops has a lot of excitement. 2, Rogue, they didn't have a great day yesterday.
It's a good close vote. That's, for all intents and purposes, it's pretty 50-50. Not a great deal separating the two there. Heading on in, we're going to be throwing down to Oregon straight away. The good old equalizer map, the good old 50-50. Thatcher coming in as the first ban. Cyclops to start things off here on the attack.
So they're learning each other's languages by the sounds of it. They're trying their best.
There's probably better times
Flores.
to do that, I'll be honest.
Gone. I love that. What's going on? Okay, this is another thing of, if you want an idea of how much fun they have in the server, it's in the old chat. Oregon, the removal of Thatcher and Flores is pretty hefty, especially if you're playing around that, blue corner and elbow. You're playing around the sort of dig in of that hold. Occasionally, if you're up in dorms, the sort of trophy setup, if teams like to extend that way with a shield and potentially a Rooney Gate to make sure they have that locked off, it's a very, very different story. I mean,
I think everyone's good.
Friends in the server.
I'll be honest, I think that everyone's been asked if they're okay, and everyone's fine.
Good. Are you good?
Thank you. I'm fine, thank you. And you?
I'm pretty good. Thank you.
And you?
And you?
Thank you. And you?
I think.
Valkyrie and Cade to be removed as well. So you've got the run of your teeth on hard breaches here. You can really go to town with that. We've got both Maverick and Hibana available. With the Cade gone and the Thatcher gone, it sort of neutralizes those two factors as well. Now, with this being Cyclops' map choice.
Yeah, and I guess this is the curiosity that starts to pick up at this point, because Oregon can be a good rogue map, but it wasn't yesterday. They were knocked back 4-7 if you missed it. And again, it was against Team Liquid, a team that, okay, they've had some roster changes. They haven't had as strong as they were, but they're still a strong roster. And they still have Nesk and Palu, who did Nesk and Palu things yesterday. And that was the thing that they couldn't quite keep up with. Rogue didn't have a secondary gunner. Most of the eyes was on Aces, who was able to put up a fight, but without that secondary pickup from Cryan or Leon, it just wasn't quite hitting the mark. Here against Cyclops, a team that's a little bit more similar to Rogue in terms of a bit of a balance of who's going to be gunning and who's going to be finding fights, and also that mobility of aggression, because all 10 of them love to try and find different locations with a singular sort of backline player. So I'm curious to see if they can learn the lessons of how they can sharpen their gun skills, but also find a more familiar foe. Hey, who's that in the hands of Anaton? 5 seconds to go.
I'm not sure if we've seen a no-see yet.
That's exactly right. I haven't, at least on my games.
I was racking my brains. I think this could be a debut. Certainly a debut in the games that I've watched up until this point. And an interesting choice and an interesting pickup. It's something that you sort of forget about, isn't it, at a point?
That's it. She's
actually,
allowed. That's
a thing now. It is allowed. We don't have to remake the lobby. Well, I mean, that's the immediate thought, isn't it? We'll have to see where Anaton chooses to deploy those shields. Obviously, there's quite a bit of window play that goes on here on Oregon, especially if you're going to look toward that top floor, so there is going to be opportunity. It's also a nice way of gathering a little bit more information. Look at where Anaton's playing at the moment. Straight into master bedroom, a little bit of adrenal surge to assist that process as well. And a shield set up outside. Now it's going to allow a nice easy route on in with the drone, and it's less about where you're able to set that up and more about what you're able to do off the back of it. Active drone in now, and if someone does choose to try and swing onto that angle, you do get a very easy straight out the drone, straight into a firefight while still remaining safe.
So they're going for the long fight here. The Impact's already swinging their way down towards the backside of Garage. A bit of a slow and steady approach. They're making sure they can try and get some eyes in. Well, if you're unfamiliar with Osa, we'll give you a very quick breakdown. She can deploy these bulletproof shields with a poppable glass bit at the bottom. An Impact will make quick work of it, or any explosive close enough, and, well, this is the danger of them. That bulletproof moving banister that you can redeploy, and then suddenly you have it as a bit of a hop to and a hop over. It is bulletproof glass, though. It can be smashed, it can be turned, so you can't really get through it, and as I said, it can be entirely destroyed with just a little bit of thinking. But she hasn't massively been seen. She's only just been allowed to be here over the quals. Let's see if she can have a bit of an impact.
Well, the smoke that's worked its way on through. Anaton is still looking to try and hold on to the angle that's been made into games, and well, with Alligator at the bottom of those white stairs, still with the small factor of Prano to deal with, the hopping will immediately be punished. This is a distinct lack of information here from Cyclops. You can't be sending your diffuser carrier into the bottom of white stairs like that, as that looks like that's where most players are going to fall. Cryan picks up another one down at the bottom of those stairs, and it's down to Anaton to try and push through the smoke. Finds one onto Prano. What is he going to be able to do from here? Just short of 40 seconds, and a C4 will find him. This is night and day different from Rogue already inside of round number 1. Information something that they have in large amounts. But by contrast, Cyclops just sort of hopping in and on a whim and a prayer.
Well, it was the first off, so she was there, and she was technically there for the longest. She's back, though. And to be honest, if anyone was going to try and bring the danger that she could muster, this is potentially one of the teams. This is potentially one of those dynamite setups, especially from a region that's had a very good run. They were often sometimes asterisked as, do APAC do the plays that they do because they're trying to break out of a meta or they're a mold set within themselves? Everybody's got a different idea, and I think they've very much proven that they wanted to try and push a game idea. And you know, the sort of early plays that have been adopted from them, the plays that they've ended up taking from other places, they're still always flirting with this idea of growth and pressure. Now, as we go underneath, I'm curious to see if she'll offer them a little bit more. Again, it may be an operator we're focusing on because, well, it's the first time we've seen her. We're still running the numbers in the back room. All the other casters are checking their pretty feeble memories as casters, I think we all have. It's the analysts who need to run. I need Dev. I need Fresh.
Some big brains in the
big brains.
Downstairs we go now to the basement. Rogue being successful on that top floor is going to force the rotation. With Mirror available, it somewhat changes the landscape of how things can be played down here. Leon opting to bring said Mirror and place a couple of windows out. Info was something that Rogue had a good deal of in that previous round. That was demonstrated by the C4 that they were able to get vertically. We could see there was a lot of players that were on the side of Cyclops really just sort of broadcasting the location and making their presence known. The Lion now being used as some sort of a pinch on trying to just gain a little bit of that control back in the early part of the round. But you just feel like Rogue were a little bit above that.
Well, Aces slips away and goes a little bit below that, and that being the pressure that was otherwise coming down quite quickly. They've realized that there is all of this mounting above, and he doesn't have to lose his life. And to be honest, this was a game that they suffered with before. The quick work of a shield that's trying its best to clear, this is another way that you could play Ossa. Have a big gun behind her, let her sort of work like a blitz without the blitz ability, and remind her to crouch every now and again, because you don't quite have the safety and solidity of the man mountain, but you do have pace. And that's a pace they're applying here as they push Cryin down tower stairs as well. He's knocked out of this arena. They're steadily shepherding all of the players down into the basement, and within a minute, it's pretty quick, but there is one loose part, and that's at the top of tower, waiting.
Gatorada seeing if you can try and create any sort of cut off there for said player as the drone goes up from Black Ray as an attempt is going to be made. Hatches can now start to be opened, and it's one of the nice things about both Thatch being banned, Cade being banned, and the 2 hard breaches being available is that you're going to be able to get those hatches open in a pinch, which with the way that Cyclops are playing, it's going to benefit them because they aren't really always giving themselves the most amount of time, albeit we've only seen a couple of rounds so far, but hatches open around the minute mark is never a bad thing. They can start now with that clear because there's going to be quite a lot to wade through when they start thinking about burning onto the site.
Now the longer Aces is up here is the more powerful he can be. He's got eyes on a drone that might have had eyes on him, but he feels a little bit safe for now as the rest steadily makes its way down the tower stairs. They're flicking through and they'll probably try and have some awareness, but if he can time this well, he can absolutely take everything out. Even if it's a do or die and probably die situation, he takes 1 or 2 and suddenly everything's up in air. He's able to slip his way past, and oh, he just gets the back of 1. There's 2 and the diffuser as well, and the E1D echoes out, but it's too little, too late. Black Ray, he tried to pick up the pieces, but at this point, his life is already forfeit Aces, so he's just going to see how much more time he can waste. He's a danger. Cyclops need to try and find a way to get rid of him, or at least force a fight here. He's low health, but they have no idea where he is. Anaton's going to have to go back into the big open space. They're going to use that to cover themselves as Cryin gets 1 more. The 2 bodies above the hatch at least get 1 back of their own, but with Aces just on the far side, it's 1 more on the hatch, and this is very likely all she wrote. No diffuser, no blood, no round for CAG.
Prono there just hyping up Aces after a very successful round. You can't deny the presence up there inside of T3 and the perfectly timed rotation. It was a brilliant sort of trap that was laid by Rogue. It was, yeah, come and take meeting. We're happy with you to open these hatches. We know we've got no way of denying that from happening. Sure, you're going to bring the Lion, but if you're not even going to clear out that top floor, we're going to punish you for it. sitting inside of the attic. It's one of the oldest tricks in the book for Aroma on this map. You know, you think about the attic and you think about how much impact you can have with a couple of impacts in your pocket. You can really start to make a nuisance of yourself. That's exactly what Aces did.
What we've seen from a lot of teams that have played yesterday and coming today is that they've grown. The teams that have beaten, it's not everybody, obviously, but obviously you look at teams, you know, Na'Vi had a slightly better performance than they did, but it can get much worse than yesterday. You've got Rogue, who have obviously learned some lessons as well. You're seeing lessons learned from opposing teams too, and it's not everybody, but I think that's one of the tells that might grow into Rogue's story here. And it's one of the things that we have to highlight about Cyclops is it's day 2, but this is their first game. And I know it was a bit of a conversation of there's the 2 moments that you're the most nervous. The number 1 is before the grand final, and the number 2 is before your first game. Because at that point, all that year's pressure and prep is relieved at least a lot more than it would be when you're second or your third, because at least you've hit the ground running. You've started a race and waited for that pistol shot. Don't be surprised if Kang take a little bit more warming up than Rogue do. They are far from the first team.
And that's the thing, isn't it? Rogue had yesterday as their first game. They played against Liquid and they really struggled. There's no other way to put it. There was only Aces who was a positively rated player off the back of the series. Already crying, has more I was literally just about to say that.
He only needed 1.
He got 3 kills against Liquid.
Oh, okay, across the whole series, yeah.
Across the whole series, yeah.
Yeah. Pog.
I mean, the all chat's lighting up, so these boys are obviously feeling pretty confident, but I mean, maybe we don't need to do any sort of analysis sections of the cast. Maybe we can just let the all chat do it, Fluke.
I mean, yeah, it's one of those things where I'm sure an admin is monitoring it.
Quite close.
As soon as all chat starts to pop up, it's like, okay, let's make sure this stays jovial and jolly as the game continues. It's only round 3, but they're a team that's in good spirits because Rogue has faced the worst, and now they're able to find the best. An instant trade out, better, from Cyclops. Iagator finds 1 and just gets the second locked in on the stairs. That gun, well, it's an LMG, and they're in a pretty hot spot right now. Susie C can't quite find the cleanliness of an entrance from that shower, so has knocked back in to see if he can scrub himself a little bit further. Impacts are impacting all the way around into the back of the corridor with Cryan still locked in. They thought they could just sneak past, but now they found themselves isolated. Anadon is waiting. He wants Cryan to see if he can offer some support, but there's only so long you can wait when you're on attack. You've got to try and set the pressure and the pace, and if they're stuck up in shower, you need something else to try and be that extra bout of mobility, whether you pick up sticks or try and head elsewhere.
It's sort of one of the traits of an Osa as well, is that you feel obliged to play by that shield now that you've placed that utility, and it can almost be a bit of a sunk cost fallacy where you've got to keep things moving a little bit quicker than they are. Anaton is now going to try and hop on through, but immediately it's shield out. Is this a lack of information, or is this just want of a little bit of speed? Aces, he's going to find himself getting downed on out as Anaton drops the shield perfectly. Susie C now looking to get into sight as well. Cryan's going to have to make that rotation. He's going to have to make it quickly. Leon does hit the shots. The shield means nothing, and the plants won't go down just yet. Still, there's 35 seconds to make this happen, and both Rogue players are a little bit off-site. They've got to make that rotation on in now. Cryan does have a C4 in hand. He's going to go for the throw, but he won't be required, as Leon is going to be there to find that final kill. Plenty of time to disable the diffuser. Mr. Gibbs is going to do that as well. Didn't have a kill coming into that round, but picked himself up 2 there, staying alive right until the end.
So, okay, we'll do a little bit about Osa there. It was a very quick swap out. That's one of the abilities that you can sort of play with it, and why you can see some active, aggressive teams, as Anaton likes to be, getting in the face. He was a big shield player. He was a very good shield player, and also can be in the right hands. We've, you know, had Pengu on our wonderful staff and support team who said what she can do and how she can be in the right hands. He might be the right hands, but it's not quite connecting just yet. It seemed like Cyclops couldn't quite get that finesse onto the side itself. It was better, but that was Rogue's tertiary site, and that's always something you've got to keep into mind, is that is their statistical third and weakest hold. That is the one where they felt most pressure, and it was still some great gunplay, and that was exactly the thing that they were missing yesterday against Liquid.
Well, they've come alive here today. They've been able to pick up the first 3 rounds on the bounce, a clean rotation. If they can run through that and do it back again, even better for them. Anaton's now switched off this time. He's actually not on the Ultra anymore. He's switched over onto the Dokkaebi. I'm not sure what it is about Cyclops, but whenever, and this is going to sound preposterous, but whenever I try and switch from a shield to a gun, or whenever I even see other players from other regions try and switch from, it takes an age. These guys seem to make it happen almost instantaneously. Ace's got downed off the back of the shield into the gun switch animation. The speed of these guys is absolutely incredible. Having said that, I do kind of agree with dropping the OSA. It's just been too much to play around. I don't think that you can base your entire attack and an entire one player just around those shields.
Exactly. It's always worth mentioning that when an operator gets introduced, it isn't just always going to be this sort of swing in. There's not really been anyone that's hit the ground running apart from original Lion, but that forced us to have new rules in the game itself. So everybody, it's not that they approach it with more caution, but it's that they bring themselves in with a steadier burn. Not everybody's an early adopter. The meta's in a very interesting place, and that's always worth admitting. It's not just that it's a new operator added, but look at the swing in how many more operators were brought into the game over the past 6 months because of those changes. You wouldn't have seen a Finker back then from anybody apart from maybe APAC rosters, and now she is in the hands of some of the best players of the world.
It's a staple. It's the same way that Zero isn't entirely the whole attacking lineup. You will bring it in some occasions, but more often than not, you're going to stick to a different vibe. We are going to hear the Logic Bomb call ring through. Gives Rogue something to think about. There's a Finker boost as well to boot. It's not being doubled up with the Lion this time, as that hasn't really stopped anybody from Rogue doing anything at the moment. Even with Aces out there on the roam in previous rounds, he's been able to deal and combat with that Lion. He's getting a little bit brave, however, at the classroom window, and really is poking for a fight here. Just sends a impact grenade up in an attempt to deter anyone from just moving on through and getting the breach open. Cyclops certainly taking this time to just see if they can catch any of these Rogue players on the rotation. Anderson actually lets somebody pass him. He's got the DMR. He hasn't really got much of an option at that point to really start taking significant shots. And if his location can remain unknown, it might be the better. A nade for a Walleye isn't ideal. And a second, well, that really does suck, because now it's going to mean Leon is a lot safer dug in behind the couch.
And they know that someone's there. That's the difference. I mean, the window was already popped and Leon was in a position, but to know that they're actively thinking about it and have been for the past 15, 20 seconds, it means that you sort of have a bit of confirmation. You have a bit of clarity on what they're approaching. Up White, though, he's just hopped in, popped round and dropped a player. There it is. A very easy pickup on one. Is a bit curious about the lockup from the second, but Gatorada, he's driven his way all the way around onto the back on the top of the Attic side. That gives them that clarity. Cryin and Prano have to go for a rotate up White. They've sort of let it slip through. It was a hole that's being punished by a planting diffuser, and Prano pops up, pops down. Gator is gone, but not before they can stop a plant, and Gatorada stops Aces on the far side. Black Gray, he's underneath now. He's going to see if he can rebuild. He thought he might catch the loose tail of a player, but they've otherwise pulled off. Cryin, though, he's going to meet the fight sooner than he thinks. And now it's just down to the rotation onto the trophy side. Prano wanted to go for a bit of a split pinch here, but they entirely know where he is. And those LMGs, oh, they're pretty strong right now.
That defense was brilliant until the moment they let everybody run up White Stairs.
Yeah.
Now, in a previous round when we saw that site, round number 1, we saw that White Stairs being held very effectively. It was held by Prano, he was playing on the Jaeger, and he was just playing tight. ADS there, bit of barbed wire potentially, didn't really need it. He just shot them as they hopped in, because guess what? You're pretty vulnerable as you're hopping in through a window. You can't then start trying to fight that on the reverse and win that gunfight. It's a height advantage thing. It's all of those things that come into it. You end up being the attacker trying to get back into your own site. If that happens, if White Stairs is held, Leon probably stays alive. There isn't a deeper push then that goes in through Attic. There's potential for a refrag. No surprise, we see them give it another attempt.
3 hard breach for the push here and the approach onto dorms, and I'm sort of curious how this is going to come together here. Obviously, if there was a site where you wanted more hard breach than less, this is always a good one, and it gives you the width of an Attic take alongside walk in without any fear, and then you can also probably pop open Armory if that gets reinforced to give you a more comfortable swing round. That's generally about it. And, you know, there's other places you can play hard destruction, but you're looking at takes. You're looking at how you structure that sort of approach. And other walls at that point are probably just going to hand more to the defenders. You blow open Trophy Attic, and suddenly your Attic take is more dangerous if they just swing Trophy. You've made that long corridor even longer and tougher to get by, and given them a bit of protection from grenade swing. It becomes a choice, and, well, by the fact that we've had a heavy spawn there over onto the tower Attic side, it seems like that might be the start of something.
I'm not sure where Cyclops were expecting to go, if they were expecting to actually go downstairs and they were looking to open a lot of things up, maybe in an attempt to remove Aces out of Attic like he played previously, or if they were expecting to go back to Dorms and now they can go for a little bit more of a two-dimensional push, because up until now it's just been hopping through the bottom of White window, and that's 50-50 for them.
I mean,
they need to come up with something a little bit deeper, and something that I am a real big advocate of is just getting Attic open. Get Attic open, put the pressure on, remove the player from being able to sit in the bottom of Attic inside of the pit. In this case, that's going to be Rips. You've got to try and do something about that player. As soon as that happens, you can really start to manipulate those defenders and force those rotations. As it stands, still waiting to see exactly where the setup will come. There's going to be a bit of drone work going on into Attic. The breach is now open. So steps are being taken. Suzy C and Black Ray both in position, as there is a mute jammer on the wall, but that can be very swiftly dealt with by the blowtorch.
Well, there's a swing pass. Leon is putting as much pressure as he can back onto the fight here, and obviously they've repositioned themselves. 3 players underneath. They expected some pace and have pulled themselves further away from the site. They've realized that there's a bit of a great read that Cyclops have, and they love to actually take the fight onto the side players, as we see. One of the only 2 that was even there is the next one to Steph at the top of White, and Black Gray's concerned about the hop out, but it's Leon that's more concerning. As I said, this is already a long corridor, a tough fight and a tricky one. They've got a bit of the hard breach done. They've got a bit of the destruction, and they have their rotation if they want to try and get a little bit closer. But Galaretta, he's got to try and draw some attention here, pull some of that pressure away, make sure that there isn't anyone else to stack up with Leon, because otherwise it's just Leon sort of saying, I'll take this, lads. Doesn't really matter what else happens.
Well, Leon's played a blinder already because he's rotated in to take the pressure off Rips. It's much better that Leon takes that engagement than the SMG-11 takes it. So he can actually fight this fight for a little bit longer at a bit more range and hold on. Look at the time, 45 seconds, and now Rips can come into play when this is a much closer range engagement. Yes, they have been able to push through Attic, and granted, we do have Anaton now who's going to be pushing in through the breach. Just a little nip through and finds one onto Aces. The Toxic Babe canisters being used in an attempt to stop that push coming through Attic as hard, but the kills keep flying. Rogue are losing a grip onto this, and surely it is all going to be down to Rips and Cryin.
Huge play from Cryin now, but he is the last one left. They pushed through the smoke that was trying their best to buy time, but just going to stick it down and make sure they have some extra seconds to reposition. The C4's thrown, but it's misblown. Anaton, that's the big danger of here, and oh, it's a trade-off. Just both of them finding each other a little bit sooner than expected. It was almost very well played there by Cryin, but Cyclops, they bring themselves back in, 3-2 currently, but they still have one more round if they can try and drop it a little bit even. We're down to Laundry with all sights open for Rogue to think they can lock it off. Ossa's back on the board, but I'm curious to see if that sticks, because the team, as you said, without the mentality of playing around those shields with a little bit of pace and that thing we love from Cyclops, which is, here's a fight, I want to take it, that's been much better without her.
It really has, and you could see just how flexible Cyclops allowed themselves to be in that previous round. The fact that they weren't hell-bent on playing a shield because they've brought it and they've got to use it, we saw what that gave them. Rogue kind of undid themselves. They knew that the biggest problem that they faced in round number 4 was that they gave up White control. So that was Prano's only job. He was just trying to hold on to the bottom of those White stairs, and he did because no one came in, but that's because everyone came in from somewhere else. Sure, the C4 from below could have been the saving grace of the round, but there just wasn't enough information on the site. It was a great hold inside of Attic. I think that Rogue just got a little bit unfortunate challenging onto a few too many windows and a few too many of those players that were on the rappel. It's good that they gave it another attempt upstairs, but it is high time to do their best to guarantee that 4-2 split, because, as we all know, a 4-2 split on Oregon is sort of the minimum expected, I think, from defenders. You've got to be coming out of here with a lion's share of the rounds.
That's the thing also worth bringing in. This is obviously Cyclops' map. This is their chance to put a drive in. It's their first performance, and Rogue have been playing better than they were yesterday. There's no two ways about that. They're in the lead and good spirits. But Cyclops, they'll wake up. As I said, it takes some time, but every team goes through that. It's just some are generally a bit quicker than others. Being able to take your first map, whether it's yours or not, is a huge reliever. It's a huge bit of courage that you can then try and drive in to go for the pressure of the full 3. Black Gray, with a very loud gun, pops an E1D, and nothing else happens behind it. I'm not sure if they were trying to go for a close down anywhere else, but it didn't really seem immediately. Aces is suddenly under fire, finds one. The Ossa, well, you're not really going to trade, and if that was somebody with a gun, it would have been a pick back up, but now Aces, Well, he's able to slip away. The players, they find a little bit of an escape there on Zulu, holding their breath. He's still got to keep moving, and it sprays all over the shop. But with that in your foot, you're not going to be able to drive yourself any closer. And here, again, the Ossa, in my opinion, cost them, and it's costing them more and more. Leon gets Gatorada off the board and leaves just 3 players left.
And that's what we want to see from Rogue. We want to see that aggressive hold, that aggressive stance, because you know it's going to get brought to you. And when Cyclops are going to make some kind of basic rookie errors like that, you know, you don't want to be holding a shield looking at someone, you want to be holding the gun. And that's when you're going to be able to get the trade. It's no good having the intel. The intel was too late at that point. We could see the attempt, we could see the setup. Irrigator was stood outside of the window with the lifeline in hand, willing to use it to open up the barricade. Blackray has pushed himself down through Freezer and certainly taken it down Rips. Leon has since rotated as well, as have the most of Rogue. There is still that small fact of aces on the roam though, and we know just how dangerous he can be. He's a player that has been so slippery that no one's really been able to nail him down yet. Despite the fact that a Lion's in play, he could still come up with a kill here.
And he almost didn't get it, but he just pulls himself round. He's going to escape once again. He puts the goo mine to cover his track, so he knows if somebody's chasing him directly. Blackgray, in the meantime, puts the pressure onto the site, takes care of Leon on the swing round, gets freezer control. Suzu C almost catches his first kill on that roamer that's been so problematic, but it's a drop, and it's dropped. It is a 4-2 half here for Rogue.
What a round from Aces. What a round from... And Leon as well, give him his credit. Picked a really good time to come up laundry stairs and make the rotation, fought the fight inside a garage, and was just there for a little bit of extra support that Aces really kind of needed at that point, because you looked at the overhead at that moment in time and there was so much going on. It was players nipping around this corner here and just narrowly missing out a chance at a glimpse on someone over there. It took a pretty heavy side push from Cyclops to go, we just need to get control of this. What are we going to do? We don't know where Aces... Let's just push side. Let's try and get a couple of kills. That's never really going to work, especially when you're leaving somebody like Aces out there on the roam. So a 4-2 split here for Rogue. Certainly a good start indeed. Cyclops struggling on that roam game. The Lion isn't the answer. You can't just bring a Lion and hit scan as soon as you lose a player. It needs to be a lot better than that.
Okay, Cyclops, the attack wasn't everything that I guess you wanted it to be, but you didn't take your time out, which makes me believe that you think that you can pull this back on your 4-2. The 3-3 wasn't the most important thing for you on your map, and now's the time to sort of prove it here. We'll start down in dorms, and with a pretty more familiar hold here, though it still has those little tweaks and twinges of that team that loves to push the mold. Ella, you don't see it too often down here. She'll likely be in a position where she can maybe swing around and get some close comfort. It's not the hefty kicks of an FO12 to just sort of lock the door of blue, but still, it's a fast gun in the right hands and a fast operator with those bursts and burns to anybody's irises that happens to walk into a Grismot. At the same time, you've also got Irrigator on that Oryx. A pairing of, we want to play around this map, come find us, and I'm curious to see if Rogue pay any attention, as 3 of them very quickly stack themselves up here onto blue. Blackray is probably about to have a lot of work for him as Anaton actually suffers on a fight there on tower.
Well, Anaton's actually got himself up along with Gatorada. There is going to be a rotation into Attic, so there's chance for them to get out of this sticky spot. But Rogue are going for a very direct approach, and Aces is going to get punished for it. Leon will be there with a trade, but this is a messy and scrappy round by all accounts. A push through into Elbow has netted Leon another. There's Toxic Babe canisters going off as well, as we've only seen 50 seconds or so. Leon's on 3, and he's still not been shut down. 3 versus 2 here in favor of Rogue. There is information for Cyclops, but they are being pressured very quickly. This is a long old time to start holding on for. Prano going to remove the barbed wire. He has the diffuser and could think about moving on through for a plant. There's no Toxic Babe canisters left. There's no C4. There's nothing that's going to stop this one from going down.
Well, a late random smoke there on the door, but Prano's gone for the plant either way. A trade out is the thing to end the run of Leon, but a 1 versus 1 is a very sudden pop-up. However, Prano still has a smoke in his pocket. There's pings that are coming through from a bulletproof that's on that open towards Pillar, and then there's yellow pings to give them a rough idea. More pings, more intel, more of a spread. There's a reveal, though! And Prano, often highlighted as the player that really brought a Lost at Sea Rogue to shore, is sure-fired to get that diffuser down and get it locked in. 5-2.
If Prano hadn't have won that, I would have been sat there going, how have Rogue lost this? Because that was scary for a time. There was 2 minutes left. It was 3 versus 2, and the 2 on Cyclops had nothing to speak of. They were out of everything. They had no smokes. They had no C4. They barely had any health between them. It was a little bit of a dire situation. I love Rogue's read. I really enjoy the shot call there. Push site, push site, push site. It looked a little bit reckless. Aces, I'm going to be honest, it looked a bit reckless. He was pushing straight down the stairs, straight down back stairs, pretty much straight away inside of the round and got taken out. Leon was there for a trade, and then the trades and the kills mainly from Leon started to come through. I think he ended up with 3, although I know that one of them did come through as a trade, so potentially could have been 4 for him. Big old round, and that quick fire push in through elbow, it sort of said, you ban Flores? Like, who cares? We're going to take elbow anyway. We don't care about Flores. Like, we're just going to put bodies in the way.
I think that's it. As soon as you see 3 bodies stacked there so quickly, the drones were buzzing around tower in a very early engagement, not just a reveal, but a physical engagement within that opening 20 seconds on tower. It's a quick push. You know it's going to be a quick push. At that point, that needs to be communicated. The smoke, it popped off, but they just pushed on through it and got a kill. What we've seen other teams do at that point when they realize this is actually just lock off elbow. Just sort of say, listen, we need these for later. They're trying something quick and heavy. Let's get some more solidity onto the site, because 1 man against 3 brave people isn't really going to be able to hold on. It's not something you can do twice. Those are lessons learned, and we can see that learned here as they've gone for a much slower take. They're going to clear tower from the top down, but they also have bodies on the bottom to make sure as soon as somebody drops on a rotation, they're called out. Anaton, he's living by fire right now, and he's not very happy about that, so he's going to try and find somewhere else to go.
Probably wise to. If you're being hunted down there, it's probably not the best place to stay. Anaton just going to really dance with death here as he just lowers himself down the stairs. Slowly but surely. Making sure he eats a little bit of time on the way, a couple of pre-fire shots here and there, just to really give Rogue something to think about, but ultimately it's been a 50-second clear of that top floor and top tower area, and now the nades can start to work. Ace is again going to take up that position at the back of those stairs as Prano just going to make sure that nobody's on the flank over inside of Laundry. Need to get hatches open, still a lot of work to do, particularly with this roam game. If you're now going to go for a clear and you're not going to directly push the site, you need to commit to that, and you need to make sure that those players have been removed. Still, we've got Irrigator hanging around upstairs inside of security, so somebody to certainly think about. The Oryx can make those quick rotations.
It's one of those things that I really enjoy seeing from this more confident Rogue is they're having these big problems and big clears they have to do. As you said, 30, 40 seconds, they've pushed that player all the way back down. Irrigator tries to find the first fight, cannot quite get the connection, and Aces is the one to end up standing. A minute 20, they've been able to finally find their first body, but they've also finally got all the control over those top 2 after the quick push and pressure onto tower. It is their map now to try and do with it what they want, and it's not just a single bit of control. As we said and saw on this site before, there are ways to rotate out of it and try and cause some trouble and panic, as Aces did up on tower stairs. Look at the difference Rogue have. They not only closed down this, but at the same time of tower control, were droning out onto the Laundry stairs. They had another body out there onto the server and the freezer stairs. It was map wide.
More innovation work going on upstairs. I'm not sure that Rogue are entirely aware of just exactly what's clear. Obviously, they're trying to burn out a little bit of utility there, but we see Leon still making those holes upstairs. Everyone is going to be on the site at this moment, so you've 30 seconds left, got to start to sort of shift that focus, and maybe it is just a knowledge thing at this point of where everybody is. Suzy C going to dip himself up the stairs, take down Crying. It's an important time to get a refrag, especially onto someone that brings grenades. Or the only player actually that still had a couple of nades left in pocket. Now we start to see that Scorpion sing, although Aces will shut it down straight away after 1. Suzy C comes in with the fight back, and Prano with the diffuser, well, he's going to be left out in the cold. 3 seconds left and a lot to do.
And impossible to do. Understandably, just took a moment there to see if he could get any bodies that overextended. It's not the most unlikely thing for a player to throw themselves into at that point, but it didn't happen. And you're still 5-3 up. It was a return to a site. They had to double down to get success. If that keeps up, you've won the map. That's how math works. Kids Dorms. Dorms main hall is where we'll go to next. 5-3. They're only 1 point away from solidifying their opponent's map right now, Rogue, which compared to yesterday and compared to the 7-4 that they were dispatched on the wrong side of, it is so much growth for a team that pretty much had a mentality shakeup yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you've got to, you can sort of give them the benefit of the doubt that last round. They were seriously chasing shadows. When I saw Aces make the rotation up the main stairs and go to the top of sort of armory area, and then Leon was hanging around in bedroom with the sledge, swinging the hammer, you just sort of, we get the benefit of all eye view. We got the bird's eye view, we know where everyone is, we can say, 4 people on site, like, this is where you need to be. And I think it was just an information thing at that point from Rogue, and I think that they just somewhat doubted themselves on that flank. They can always bring things to try and secure that flank, if they want to try and bring a Nomad or bring something like that into the mixture, but it isn't always necessary. Talking about bringing things in, Fluke. Prano.
I know, it's an arena with a diffuser.
It's that's terrifying.
Please go to Dawn's window. I want to see someone fly up. Yes, thank you, Medics. You knew exactly where I wanted it. Oh, come on. Just throw yourself in, see what you can pull off, because it's been done before. It's been done in EUL before, and it's so fun. And it's this danger. There's also obviously the hatch, as Medics is also well aware of and is saying in my wonderful ear from our fantastic team, is there it is. You have the window, you have the hatch, and you suddenly have yourself popped up right into the back line of their site. It's not the most aware thing. You don't really expect those sort of maneuvers in play, and if you can play against expectation, suddenly it's a very different round.
It's never pretty.
No.
Let's not glam this up any. It's exciting, but it's never...
yeah, I'm not saying it's the greatest thing.
It's never pretty.
It's not. It works rarely.
60% of the time.
But look at where he is.
Well, this is
what I want.
The first kills come through. Aces has found one onto iGate. The kills are starting to fly. That was Prano's bowler, but he gets himself downed.
Oh, and it didn't quite go the way. It's never pretty. Rips is all that's left inside the side. It's a 3 versus 1, but Susie C is all that's left for anything on the side of it. So the remaining 2 rogue players, well, they can just swing their way in and get that kill. It could have been the greatest. You could have been a contender, Amaru.
The thing is, how much more are we asking for at that point? Because it's borderline worked. Everything there, I mean, Rogue won the round, so it's worked anyway. But they opened up with 2 great kills. Prano flies himself. He gets down straight away. It's a huge sound cue. It's a lot of noise. It's a lot of movement. It's going to get found out. Meepy looks fairly pleased with that one. He's got a slight, ever so slight, grin on his face after that round. Quick fire stuff from Rogue. That's really bringing the fight to Cyclops.
Oh, yeah. I mean, as the Prano was an express diffuser delivery service straight to the heart of site. What else do you need? What else do you need? Same day service.
It's a 5-star. It's 5-star.
Bish bash bosh.
Yep.
10% tip.
10?
On the service. All right, 25%.
I was going to say he's fallen in sight.
Yeah, he did collapse for this delivery. Okay, we'll give him a 25% tip.
That's better.
Tipping culture isn't a thing in England.
It's not. We need to get used to it.
Yeah. Sorry, Americans, if I've upset your sensibilities.
How good is it to see Leon Gids on 10 kills, 5 deaths?
How good is it to see Cryin on more than 0 kills?
On positive?
It is. 95.
It is.
Okay, let me just paint this in an entirely different way. How good is it to see Rogue play confidently? Because yesterday they won, and they're a happy-go-lucky team. All 10 of these players they're a very great energy across this whole board and this whole server. They have suffered the worst, Rogue in general, but Leon as well. He's been there throughout all of it, where they've been close to relegation, and then they've been an unbeaten super team. They've literally tasted everything, and you go through that and it builds you into a team that can take those knocks. And it was one of the questions that we had, because it was a heck of a knock yesterday versus Liquid, where they just didn't have any confidence in their gunning. And to be shut down by Nesk and Palu, okay, that makes anybody uncomfortable, but being able to take that and then build into this performance where they're swinging, they're going into these fights, they're playing Amaru quick plays on their opponent's pick, it's so much better to see from them.
I mean, it's a rite of passage to get slammed by Nesk on land. Like, that's just the way that things go. And it's all about how you bounce back from that. And Rogue have done already fantastically in Oregon, regardless of the result and how this map ends. They've played some cracking siege in the majority of the rounds so far. So much so that they are currently on map point. A chance for them to take what would feel like quite an early lead in this best of 3 and then move on to their own map choice. Like, you've got to be pitting them as favourites at that point. Aces has often been at the front of that charge, and he's going to be upstairs now on a little bit of a roam clear.
A couple of questions. Alligator, first of all, running out peaks. Second of all, doing it as smoke, I think, is always going to be a little bit of a curiosity there. He went for something bold and got caught by a drone. Lucky he saw it, because otherwise he would have been quickly dropped. Gatorado, one. Almost finds the second. Pre-fires and hopes they swing into it. Has the hatch if they want an escape. And Alligator on the backside, but Aces locks it off and has awareness. He's very aware that there was another player, and Prano has Anaton at the bottom of the stairs, massively isolates this smoke now. Black-Gray battles his way up, and Alligator swings on, finds the one in bedroom, and takes care of them. Suddenly the body balance has gone back, and they've retaken the space. It's an important fight that's about to happen here for Aces, who was the tip of a spear, and now he's a man on an island. And now he's a man sent to the world beyond, leaving just Prano here to see if they can lock it off. A minute, but another 3 versus 1.
White Stairs has often been the sort of real anchor point of this entire map that we've seen so far. So much has happened in and around that area, and this round was really no different. Prano now, though, is going to have to take an alternate line of approach, and it just so happens it's going to be straight into Alligator. That is what we needed from Cyclops. We needed that aggression. We needed them to meet Rogue in the field, and they did just exactly that. We haven't seen a round with rapid-fire trades like that for a good amount of time.
Okay, a little bit more energy, Cyclops. You're 2 rounds away from being able to level this out and potentially take the map yourself. It's a heck of a boon to take yours and drive yourself in. It's a best-of-3 series. It doesn't mean it's over, but again, we'll say it a couple of times throughout these early days. I'm sure if you're unaware, the way the scoring works is if you take 2 maps in the best-of-3, you get the full fat 3 points. If you win, but it goes to a 2-1, so your opponents get 1 map, then you only get 2 points, and they get 1 map. So even if you lose a best-of-3 series, if you take a map, you take a point, and most importantly, you take that off of your opponents, which means that they won't be as far ahead of you on a table, which across a 5-day group stage, that could be very spicy games at the end of this.
Points mean prizes, and they really do add up, as you say, over the course of the group stage when all of these best-of-3s are going down, and especially with the way that the seeding works. I mean, coming out of your group first seed, you get a bye essentially in the first round. That's massive, and that's really what teams are going to be gunning for pretty damn hard. So every round matters, and for Cyclops, this is 2 rounds potentially for them if they do manage to drag it back to an OT that they're going to have to fight fairly hard for. They are going to show us to the basement. This was 50-50 so far for Rogue. They've been good downstairs, and they've also been a little bit ropey, chasing shadows, chasing roamers that really just didn't exist. But equally, we've seen the direct approach, and we've seen how effective that direct approach can be.
Leon going for a direct approach with 2 bodies, either shoulder. It seems like Leon's going to go for the deep dive onto Split itself. They're sort of spreading themselves down to Laundry, actually. They've decided they want the site, and they're going to take it within the opening 30 seconds. Suddenly they're in. Suddenly one's gone. They're going to swing around and get the fight elsewhere. Can't get the connection. Leon with a huge double kill, finally dropped by Anaton, but still the door of the site has been blown open. Alligator up the back stairs. Cannot get the kill against the Buck. You assume there was a call from a drone there, and, well, it's isolated as 2 remaining players. Anaton, a massive fight, and he's able to at least slip by it, which means that they can set up a back line, a ballast of 2 bodies, pointing directly towards all the enemies, not just entirely surrounded. Prano, with the diffuser, is actually going to keep pushing, try and get the kill, and, well, it works out. Rogue, they take the opening map, they take it away from Cyclops, and they push themselves closer to a 2-0.
Rogue are not afraid of a quick play, and that is terrifying. The decisiveness and the commitment that both Leon and Aces showed in that round was second to none. You cannot buy that synergy of between 2 players that are just going to have one another's backs. Leon straight first in, sledgehammer in hand, bursting through the barricades, and he's got Aces backing him up. As it happened, Aces was the first one to go down, but luckily Leon was there for 2 trades. A really explosive round, and again, similar to the way that they approached the kids site when they went for the explosive Amaru play. Rogue's rounds there, a couple of them have really come off the back of just good old confidence.
I think that's entirely it. And it's one of the things that we saw from them, because you put this Rogue roster up where it's 4 great gunners, three that are sort of signature gunners with a backline against a team like Liquid yesterday, and they suffered. They couldn't match the aggression. You put them against a similar team in Cyclops, where you have this balance, and they're firing confidently, then suddenly that divide looks more in their favor. It wasn't just aces, but it was Leon, it was Cryan, it was all of them having their moments, and it led to a Rogue that, if you're a Rogue fan, well, you're familiar to see them, but you're also familiar to see the Rogue from yesterday too. Will it continue for the rest of now? We'll have to find out. After a quick break, we'll be back with map 2, which is Rogue's Choice.
Gids, I'm team captain and entry for Rogue. Recent play changes include Prano coming out instead of Corey in the last stage. Corey actually decided to leave himself and quote-unquote retire just to come back a few weeks later, so, you know, typical siege maneuver. We could have picked up a lot of people. We went for Prano because he's a strong voice in the team and we need someone who could guide us in the right direction. The change he brought to the team was basically at the end of the round, we didn't quite know what to do. We didn't really have a clear direction and focus of what we wanted to do as well. So he pretty much brought that extra voice in to make sure we were doing the right things and staying on track. Our successes did come a lot with Prano, but it wasn't just because of him. I think as a whole, the team really stepped up over the last stage and really started to show their old colours again. Prano's best attribute is definitely a calm mind and level-headed. He's always making sure people are not tilted and making sure they are focused. I definitely think Prano made the team better, of course, but I think as well it comes down to everyone else in the team. I think they really stepped up their game of how they wanted to approach the game and how they wanted to play. And it also came down to Bernie as well. She's really important for the team to make sure our mental's up. Bernie is our performance coach, psychologist, whatever you want to call. Well, Bernie for me personally has had a lot of impact. She really helps me on game days and, you know, just in general if I'm on a bad day. I can't speak for the others, but she's helped me a lot. I think every team should look into getting a performance coach. Well, the difference between then and now is obviously we've changed up a few strats, we've changed up a couple roles, we're coming in with some new stuff as well. People won't see. It's very going to surprise people, I think. And I think as a whole, our level has really stepped up. There is nobody we are afraid of or scared of facing in our group. I think our toughest opponent will probably be FaZe. I think our weakest opponent will be Liquid. If there's another team that I'd want to win the Invitational, it would be Eminem. I think the favourite to win at the moment is probably FaZe, NiP, or maybe even BDS. Be prepared, because last time we were underestimated and this time we're going to be underestimated again, but we're going to bring it our A game.
We came for what's ours.
and welcome back here to map 2 of this showdown here. The second for Rogue after a not great performance yesterday from Rogue. They've picked it up and taken their first map here versus Liquid. They struggled yesterday versus Cyclops. Well, Cyclops are the ones doing a little bit more of the struggling.
Yeah, Cyclops, everything really isn't working out too well for them at the moment, is it? They did struggle on Oregon, which was their map choice, and Rogue were able to come away with a win there. So now we move on to Rogue's pick, and you've got to think, with the way that Rogue are moving and the confidences that they're showing today, it looks like an entirely different roster. They have really started to, get alive and get up for the event, which is exactly what we wanted to see. You can see there demonstrated by the stats alone. Leon had a bit of a standout game, especially when he got himself onto the attack. Ace is backing that up, but there was quality top through bottom. And, well, people got more kills than they got yesterday in one map than they got in an entire series, Fluke.
Cryan got more than 3 times his total kills yesterday. He only pulled off 3 kills in the showdown with Liquid yesterday, and that is the sort of signifying. We can't just pin it on one player, no, but it's the conversation about them we had was there wasn't any confidence. It was nervous, things weren't hitting them. When things don't hit the mark against a team like Liquid, they punish those mistakes, and it warmed them up. Here, Cyclops, they haven't been able to find those ins. Rogue is a little bit more controlled, and then they become confident to try their more out-of-pocket plays, like an Amaru, and like the sort of rushes that we saw happen twice down underneath, and now it's Cyclops' turn. They've had a map, they've had an idea, they've had a bit of a team talk and a moment to get their heads back together. Can they piece this into, 3 maps and a best of 3?
That's what it's going to take now for Cyclops. They're going to have to take this to all 3. What's kind of nice is the way that Rogue are playing. They're bringing these quick plays. They're bringing that flashy aggression. And it's against a team like Cyclops that you think, well, they're going to be the ones that are bringing those quick plays and the flashy aggression. And it's almost as if Rogue have sort of drawn the Uno reverse card and they've said, well, if you guys can do it, we can also do it as well. And we're going to Amaro in through a window, or we're just going to directly push in onto site. That was Oregon, but now we have to look forward to our second map. Our second map, of course, being Clubhouse. This is, it's probably one of the most 50-50 2 maps that you could get inside of a best of 3. Something that I always like to trot out is, for all that we can sort of praise Rogue for winning Cyclops' map pick, does anyone really get to pick a map like Oregon or Club, or should every team be able to play it? Because nobody should be bad at those 2 maps.
No. There's some teams that are great at those 2 maps, and there's some teams that are great at only that map, but every team knows how to play it. Every team knows how to bring a game to Club in Oregon. They are your traditional. They're ones that across every region, I think there's been whole play days just of Clubhouse in Oregon. Not only once, but multiple times. You don't have a chalet day, you don't have a bank day, but we have had many a Clubhouse or an Oregon day.
I think we've removed those days from our memory, but yeah, they do exist. But I think we try and get our memory wiped at the end of that one. And they do fall into that category because teams just like to run through and play the defaults, whether it's that they're trying new things or they're keeping things under wraps, whatever it might be. Now is the time to bring it. Maverick as the first ban. For anyone that's joining us for this map and didn't catch map number 1, the all chat's popping between these two. There's good vibes. There's good vibes all around.
100%. And that's this roster. And we sort of said it before that both these teams have pretty good mentalities when it comes to things going away from them or bringing it in. Sure, you can still get in your own head in how you're playing, and sometimes you're not on the server with your hands, but your head and your heart is a very different story, and it was a problem for Rogue once upon a time. Cyclops have been so happy to play Siege anytime I've ever seen them. They love getting into games, they love the competitiveness, and they love matching the fire with the fire and seeing how they can push it. Rogue have had downs. They've got a wonderful support staff behind them, obviously. Bernadette is their mental coach and helps them build a better structure, was brought in around 6 months ago, I think, roughly, and she's really helped sort of bring them together. She's here as well, working alongside the team, alongside obviously Mipi, and the sort of structure that they have there, and it's just great to see a team that, as I said before, they suffered the worst after suffering the best. They went from being undefeated to being entirely defeated with just a split difference. It was like a month break and suddenly they couldn't beat anybody.
sometimes when you get to the top, it attracts that level of attention, doesn't it? And you really have to start fighting back against, well, everybody knows how we play now. Everyone's really focusing on beating us because we've set that new standard, and then everybody else catches up to that standard, and it's now back on someone else to reset it again. And that's kind of the sicklier nature of progression almost sometimes between regions. Rogue here looking to make this a swift 2-0, and by all accounts, they've got a good opportunity to do so. Starting off here on Clubhouse on that defender side, the band's coming in. We've got the Maverick removed, Thatcher removed, of course, Valkyrie no longer to be seen, and Cade to round things out. So by all accounts, a very standard set of bans, nothing really unusual there.
Have you
Attackers are moving out to locate
ever
a bomb and
seen
defuse it.
a man drop shot with a shield?
Well, this is what we were talking about previously, isn't it?
Because you're gonna see it.
This is where the speed starts to come in. Anaton's a terrifying prospect to go up against. Osa was sort of teased and brought and tried and attempted on Oregon, but it wasn't really ever successful, whereas now we go back to Old Faithful.
The Monty in the hands of Anaton, when played previously on the grandest stage, took a lot of people by surprise. The players inside the server and then people at home, when he will actively drop shot with the Monty, to the point where a lot of people went back to the server and tried it out, and it does bring you a surprising balance of accuracy. There was something to the madness, a little bit of magic that was that consistent surprise. It's not going to be as surprising this time. If you go up against them, you expect, especially on Clubhouse, to see a Monty, because Monty, to be fair, is brought by a lot of teams on Club to try and get control up here of the rafters. You can sort of just gangplank your way all the way through and keep battling and bolstering yourself. It's going to get opened up. He's going to tease the door, maybe some explosives, and there it is. He says hello, crying, gives the ping, but there's not much else they can do apart from have the cover from aces there, and they got to sit and wait and see how much time they can bat out.
And that's what it becomes about. It becomes about how well supported is Anaton and how much of this time is he going to be able to actually make use of, because for all intents and purposes, if the Monty stood there, it isn't actually doing anything unless there's anybody backing that up. We see Gatorada now coming into the fray, and it's going to be Irrigator to pick up that first. Aces to fall, nade in hand, but there's going to be plenty of catching utility there on that catwalk. We see ADSs and Wamai discs.
Rips is down in oil. He's waiting to see if he can catch a sneaky edge. It's the smoke canisters, though. They're going to be the first push from Prano. They're sort of realizing that there's a huge amount of pressure coming from Anaton. It's down to the rest of the CAG players to see if they can crack open this wall, force the smoke further away so they cannot help and support that Jaeger up on the rafters. If they can isolate that player, they can get him. They can pinch him out, and there's a bit of the movement, but with Rips underneath, he's not as alone as they might think. Monty, he's sort of dabbling. I think he's more concerned about a swing round from the top. It's not entirely covered, but look, 40 seconds. Whatever the rest of CAG do, there's the reveal of the player down underneath, and they've got to start doing it a little bit sharper. Is a rotation coming through. Irrigator's going to see if they can go underneath, and there's the pickup. The Malusi's caught out. There's the cover down on Rips, 30 seconds. Cryin goes for the knife, can't get it. That's a shield crouch down, not quite the drop shot, but with a single reveal, there's a player wide, and there's the drop shot. It does a lot of damage, but Leon survives, able to bite back through the softer spray. Down red, and a canister doesn't quite get its way all the way in. It's on the door, caught, and Anaton needs to go for a hot hop. It sprays, and Suzu C that finally finds the isolation. The diffuser is inside the site, 5 seconds. Prano, well, he's in and amongst 4 players, and Cyclops pull it out.
Cyclops did a great job there of displaying a lot of patience. We were talking about wasting time and if that Monty was really providing a lot of effect, but relaxing into it and just knowing that you've got that pressure. It's almost like a tap. You can turn it on whenever you want a bit of water. You can turn that pressure on as soon as you want Anaton to push up that catwalk, because realistically, what's Cryin able to do? Like, he can't do anything. He's stuck there on the catwalk and there's no real place to hide. So that was something that was really influential. Obviously, the breach getting opened when it did. Typically, we criticize teams that don't open the breach in the first half of the round or the first 50 seconds or the first 2 minutes, whatever your metric is. That breach got open at like 55 seconds. And it was the perfect time because that's when the panic set in. Prano then has to play deep from the top of cache stairs. It gives a lot less space for those defenders to work in. Whereas if you give them that option earlier, they're going to come up with solutions around that. They're going to go underneath. They're going to make flanks. They're going to throw utility from deep. That wasn't an option. And ultimately, Cyclops were able to just choke them out from there. Unfortunate from Rips on the rotation. I think he could have done a little bit more. Got caught out shooting the drone, gave the game away. Was there anyone sat on the drone at the time? Had it lit up? These are questions that we don't know the answer to, and it wasn't the only reason that the round was lost, but it was definitely a contributing factor. And Rogue, well, they go downstairs, tail sort of between the legs.
Before we potentially see more of the Monty, I think that is the perfect example of what a Monty can do. That's a great Monty player. Do you know how you know a great Monty player? It's because you as a viewer go, I'm kind of frustrated imagining what it would be like if I was up against this Monty player right now.
I'm angry.
You get because it's that good. Everything is played perfectly. There's never a moment. There's always this creeping pressure, and that is the sign of watching a great Monty player. As you yourself get a little bit of that nervous flashbacks of what it's like suffering against the side of it. Here, though, it's a slightly different approach, a slightly different sight. You'll commonly see a drive of a Monty down via dirt in most teams' hands, but this isn't most teams with a Monty, so I'll say that as one way to do it. It doesn't mean it is the way to do it. Hopped up on a hatch here. Are they going to be able to get a catch? There is a spray through. They hoped that they were going to place that from somewhere else, and it was a gamble and a gambit, but it's drawn some time and attention, and that is the role of a roamer on the top floor on a basement hold.
-1 breach and charge. Not going to be the end of the world by any stretch, but Leon can still play inside of logistics, still aggress onto that hatch. Hibana now going to be deployed, and it's going to be more difficult for Leon to know exactly where they are, so just going to dip himself back off. But of course on the Vigil, can try and play that catch me if you can game of activating the cloak and seeing if he can waste any drones.
Anaton, in the meantime, has decided to drive up dirt. Sure, there might be somebody else there, but I'm a Monty, and I've got things to do, which is try and put pressure onto the site itself. And the C4s that are prepped, but the call in the audio is massive. The smoke canisters, you're going to hope that they're held on for as long as possible, especially as you've got Rips playing the Legion. A big pickup and blow potentially to a Monty that tries to make its way through. You can see them, but you stop by them unless you have it ticking away on your leg. A big problem for somebody like Anaton who wants to just keep driving in. There's also this, an Oryx, and he just goes in for a freebie, picked up and locked out. There it was. An entire perfect removal of a player and an operator. You've got a Monty. These are the exterminators you call in, all three of them. They are there for a purpose, and it is to stop that mountain, because as soon as it falls, it is so much easier to get to the top and plant a flag that says this one was a rogue round.
And you know that Rogue have got these tricks of dealing with it. Aces was waiting in that position for the entirety of the round. That was his only job, was to knock Monty back onto the floor. It isn't over yet, though. There's still an advantage here for Cyclops. I say that as Aces picks himself up one more. I mean, I guess he got the assist onto the first, but we can give him some credit anyway. He did a lot of the hard yards in there for that one. Not a lot of time remaining, 25 seconds, and we've now got Leon inside of Kitchen. Again, a player that's unaccounted for. Suzy C going to try and figure out a way to hop on in, can choose to drop into stock, but ultimately, whichever way you go, you are likely going to meet your end here, and it doesn't really matter. It's kind of pick your poison time. Leon, a little bit of outside to in, drops the diffuser, doesn't need to further drop the hatch. Anything can happen now on the site, and as long as Leon keeps control of that kit, he is going to be just fine. Black Ray there as the last player alive, not in position to do anything about it, and Rogue grab one back.
Well, it came down to the time, but it came down to a roam play. And as I said at the beginning, that is the role of that player on the top floor, especially in the hands of a Vigil. But if you can do a play like that, well, that's the role of any great player in that sort of situation. They pull a round back after it had been a bit back and forth. Obviously, with the Monty going down, as I said, it heralded a bit of a result, but it came down to the tenacity of Cyclops to keep that pressure hot. They kept themselves driving in. It's a bit of a static reliance, and I guess they have the assumption now that Monty might be there every single round to reveal it and maybe pick away from it if you really want to be creative. And, well, I guess we'll see if they decide to have a response. The Flores is the playoff, the swap between two different intel styles here as Mira steps up inside Jim, and we have seen Rogue play a fantastic mirror hold here against Jacuzzi.
Mirror and Gym and Bedroom, it's a match made in heaven, isn't it? It is the site that you think of when you think about Mirror on this map. There are so many ways that you can try and play it. Either you want to try and hold aggressively onto the Jacuzzi wall, play in a mirror window where Prano's reinforcing now into the bathroom, leave that left-hand panel soft, couple of shot holes through there, whether you want to make it as a rotation or you want to just make it as a couple of lines of sight. You can really choose, it doesn't matter. You can still shoot through that soft wall regardless. Second, it's a little bit more loose, it's a little bit more fast. You can play this second mirror window wherever you like. A popular one and a common one is going to be inside of logistics, looking through into construction. The biggest problem with that mirror window is the hatch. It's the elephant in the room. You can't do anything about the hatch, and that's going to rely on any ADSs, any WAMIs, anything like that you've got to try and keep control of that window.
A big extension, a huge amount of utility, including the Goyo, that's going to give them that width over towards CC. Leon's going to see if he can hold on to the top of red for as long as possible. But, again, it's an extension. It's a way to sort of play yourself across the face of this. And Cyclops, as we saw in the previous round, when they saw a hole in the site which they thought that they could push, they went for it. I'm curious to see if they decide to dedicate the same mentality here. Are they going to instead try and push logistics and construction window, see if they can force those two Rogue Rowan players to have to pull themselves back? Enough pressure will cause a boil. There's a setup there, and they're just prepping themselves ready for the breach as it's Cyclops sort of weighing up options.
I do find it kind of funny how they brought the mirror and there's actually no one playing on the windows at the moment. It's kind of one of those situations where it's like, yeah, these are really good positions. They can also be quite difficult to get back into, by the way. Yep. You know, you can often just be giving yourself somewhere to play. I'm going to be there for the entirety of the round. I'm sorry, I'm doing a job. Getting back there isn't always so straightforward, and losing aces to a nade, well, that's not going to be ideal. Great little opener there for Cyclops.
I don't think they expected to get the kill there. I think that they were just going for a bounce around onto the shield. I could be wrong, but that was an unfortunate time to rotate. By the looks of it, from the side of aces, he was just heading through as that grenade came to meet him face to face, and at that point it's a red indicator and a bit of an uh-oh. Now they're starting to flood their way through. Obviously the Roteros are doing some quick work with the shield, but they've still got to be able to actually break themselves into the site, and without the focus paid over to CC, they have the option to swing. There's also a player down in strip. There's a chance for Chrono to potentially go for a run out or a loop down of a C4, but instead they're suddenly inside the site, so now it's just vertical. There's the C4 over the top. It is blown and does catch the diffuser carrier, but now Prano's got to try and fight his way back up to the top. Anaton should be able to get this recollected and get a plant down. They have this watch from either side of the stairs. A pre-fire gives the game away that we know where you are, and it's just seeing if you can fight your way out. The answer's no. 2-1 to Cyclops.
I always believe it's the hardest angle to challenge onto on the entire game. Trying to retake from those stairs as a defender when that breach is open and when you've got somebody in bedroom or logistics, it is now impossible. You can't be, you just can't do it. It very rarely happens. And Prano, I mean, the vertical was good. It was there for Rogue, but they just didn't have any site presence. Nope. That's right. They just balls straight into Jim, like no qualm, no problem, nothing stopping him from doing so. They did get lucky with the utility clear. It was a great focus. That's what you want to be using your nades for. You need to be removing the Goyo shields. Those are powerful positions that defenders can sit behind, and even worse, defenders can shoot those positions and really expose you if you do get in and get engulfed in a load of flames. So the fact that we saw that come through from Cyclops was fantastic. The Rotero drones were used exceptionally well, but it wasn't enough. There was just no hold onto the site. Everyone just sort of set up and then dipped.
This Monty, I believe, is playing more tricks for Rogue than maybe we entirely realize at this point. The sixth pick there. The swap out from both two teams, the Monty to the Ace, gives a very different play and approach, and the Tachanka, for me, is mainly for those flame grenades. It's a secondary backup to the smoke, and something, if you're aware of how we've watched that approach come from the Monty, it was buffed by the smoke canisters and a buffed by a way to stop it approaching. Leon could do that without control of CC in this role, and with that gun set, and buy them so much more precious time that they won't need to buy now. So I guess he's got to hope that there's other ways to utilize it, as I'm sure there is, because that's still the default plant. You can still sort of bounce those over the top of Cash into behind the server stack. If you know your lineups, then you'll line yourself up pretty well.
I think the big question here is, where does it free Cryan up to play? Because he played on Catwalk last time. If that's going to be occupied by Leon, now trying to stop the players from coming in, Cryan could be now taking up Rips' position maybe at the bottom of Oil Pit. Aces is still going to play downstairs at the top of Blue, at the top of Lounge, just in and around. In contrast to previous, the breach has been open very quickly here as well, which is already going to give, in my opinion, a bigger advantage to Cyclops than leaving it till later on into the round. The site is split. Rips is now in Cash. Prano is now at the top of those Cash stairs, and it's very unlikely that anyone's going to be able to trade between there and Garage.
Well, the Selmas start to pop, and if they remember their previous lineups, they'll know that the Monty isn't on the board, because Ace well, wasn't on before. It could be a swap elsewhere, but it's the most likely because it's the game that they've been playing all game so far. Is he here? Is he not? I don't know. Neither did you. Cryan is deep on the roam. He has the chance to potentially swing his way up. As we said, the droning has been pretty good from Cyclops so far, and they did leave some in Oil Pit before, and that was how they were able to catch rips, and it seems like they have an idea of Cryan's position, but as he said, it's just how well he's been able to play the surprise. Were they active when he passed by? Which direction? And do they truly have this taste? How long are they going to be hunting Cryan underneath?
There's going to be a couple of flank drones getting thrown out now as well. I think Cryan's probably playing this as well as he can. He just needs to find himself a rat corner downstairs to hide in. In all honesty, it doesn't sound pretty, it doesn't sound great, but that's what is going to be required. If he is going to get hunted, it could be at a later point in the round. The rest of Cyclops is really posturing at this moment. They're looking to take control of construction. Drones are starting to work in. Gatorada in hot pursuit. He's almost certainly been drawn there yet. As we can see, Cryan going to shoot the drone, just reposition it ever so slightly, but he isn't going to give up that ground. Still, there is a fight going on upstairs to be had now as the breach will start to be open. This is where nades start to become a little bit of a problem, and Rips could find himself taken on out. The nade didn't sail, the drone will.
There it is.
Backup one does hit, and that's going to be a huge swing here. Second nade now coming in through B window. Gatorada maybe looks to make an approach in through Garage, who at this point could have a huge impact.
Well, the Tachanka is now just on the other side of that window. They're not quite aware, though, and Gatorada's a bit isolated. There it is, though. Leon gets one. The trade comes through. They're a bit concerned as the Banshee screams over the top, but red falls. Suddenly everything does, and it's just Cryan who made the creep up. Suzu C. He's going to see if he can get this stuck down inside the site itself. It's post-plant now, but not for very long. Maybe a sliver of a second, if it counts. But it's another one counted for CAG. 3-1.
Cyclops doing a really good job of keeping Rogue guessing. I think that Rogue are maybe getting in their own heads a little bit. You mentioned there with the Monty pick, that has to be playing on the back of your mind. When you've had Monty played so effectively, Anaton is notorious for playing the Monty. It's got to be something that you consider, because you know as soon as you stop considering it, it's going to come around and it's going to bite you again. So playing with that in the back of the mind, bringing things like the Tachanka for that area denial to try and keep control of Garage, and then just an entirely different push. Sure, we saw East Wall get open, but then there was a full rotation, and it was, yep, we're all going to dip, we're all going to get ourselves through Master, through Jacuzzi, through construction, and work on that construction side wall. The pressure below, fantastic. Black Ray with the up nade, the information that they were able to gather. Cyclops are putting on a little bit of a display here, and Rogue need to catch themselves quickly, because at the minute, they're kind of in free fall.
This is another new operator in the hands of Anaton, now bringing the Twitch.
Nothing he can't do.
He is the multi-tool. He is really just adapting to whatever I think he wants to at this point, what he thinks can be brought to be the difference maker here. And obviously, you look at the lineup on the side of Rogue, and they've still got the setup, as we said, and complemented. If there's anything to take care of a Monty, they had it. They still have it, and it can obviously still do other things. You're looking at Leon and Aces as a combination of those two operators can be a huge roam factor. I guess it's just whether we see the roam come through, because obviously last time Aces was on site to deal with the Monty. Is he going to start on site? Is he going to start elsewhere and wait for a potential call of the operator that was 6th pick? We can only see how this round develops.
Rips is playing Legion this time, so there could be an argument to say we could let Legion try and do that job. Initially, the pressure is going to be on Cryan. Finds one, finds two. What is going on here? CAG, they've let 3 go to him. He didn't even have to move his feet. He's found himself a triple. That has to be the round at this point. We've not even seen 35 seconds.
I mean, it was 2, he changed guns and picked up the third. Yeah, that's a tragedy. That's a freebie. That's 3 players on a plate there for Cryan to just absolutely sweep away. And as you said, sure, they've got 2 minutes and it's not over. But it's not a great start. There's no denying that. You've lost all of your utility. You've lost pretty much everything that could have been a driving factor. You still obviously have some of the verticalities, and you still have some hard destruction, but I mean, you've still got 5 Rogue players to dig your way through, and they've got absolutely everything that they need. The grenade round onto the back of blue box isn't quite going to get the full catch onto Cryan. It's a Thunderbird, so whether they've got a bit of kit there to keep them going, I'm not too sure, but there will be one not far away, and you see him start to be picked back up.
Really, where do you go from here for Cyclops? They're going to attempt to dirt tunnel and push down blue. We've got Suzu C, does have the diffusers, going to get choked out by Toxic Babe canisters, and they can be paced out quite nicely throughout the course of the rest of this round. Rips, of course, with the Legion Goo Mines as well, can look to try and do a bit to assist. Black Ray's moved up, he's been able to take control of blue, and he's now in and around Generator, but Cryin knows pretty much exactly where he is. Black Ray conscious of a flank, but Rogue aren't going to give it up that easily. Rip's going to find himself one after the Goo Mine ping, and Suzu C just gives himself up after that. A flawless round for Rogue. And Cryin, what a round. You can't teach that. 3 kills, 1 spot, right place, right time. You can forgive him for switching guns. I'll be honest with you.
I mean,
after 2 have flied in, do you really think a third person is going to come? I don't. I'll be honest, I don't think that 3 people are going to go through. After 2 kills, switch your gun. Take a moment to breathe. You do whatever you want there. You basically won the round for your team.
Yeah, that was that moment that sometimes happens in Cyclops games where they suddenly just switch off. It is, if we're going to talk about how you're used to things with Rogue, Cyclops fans, Cyclops viewers are used to moments like that where they'll have all this brilliance, they'll have all this drive, but then they sort of switch off for a second and suddenly everything's out the window, or in the window 3 times in this case.
Through the window.
Right through.
The thing is, I think prior to that round, we'd been praising Cyclops for playing this like incredible giga brain strategy of like, these guys are just playing mental arithmetic.
Yeah, they're like, they're over here, we're baiting it in, we can just push the site here, and
then they just pile in through a window.
They throw 3 people through a window and all of them get dropped.
It's the yin and the yang that is this team, I think, and well, maybe, just maybe, they can come away with a 4-2 split here. They were successful attacking this site, and I think that Rogue will be reluctant to go back here, because things just went from bad to worse very quickly. We commented at the time about the mirror windows. It looks as though those will remain, and they may as well, because we didn't really get to see them be used. The site was vacated by the defenders, and Cyclops got a couple of early advantages that they quickly snowballed into a round win.
Okay, Cyclops, Monty's back. Hey, if you're playing the gambit of Willy Won't He, it's Willy. They've been able to see if he can be the 4-2 bringer here, and I guess, will he be the driving force as he was before? If you're looking at how he can approach, sure. If they want to try and get it clear on the CC side, he can be that big entrance he did before. Gatorado with a quick swing round, and it seems like they are curious about the utility that's been placed on the other second side of the second story. But it's otherwise still the possibility of just hitting up Jacuzzi, hitting up that sort of wall, getting it open. It's a thermite. It seems like he's going to spread his way through and spread his wings. Has the diffuser in pocket, which isn't always seen from him when he's playing this role.
It's fairly choice, isn't it, to give you Monty your diffuser if they're going to go for a huge roam clear, but in the hands of Anaton, it could be worthwhile. A C4 from below maybe says otherwise. Rips has got some active information that he was able to feed through on a bulletproof, and while the C4 does the damage, it doesn't quite deal the finishing blow, but the floor will now be opened, and Monty can still be shot in the foot. Kills start to fly here for Rogue, as they're successful on the first 2 engagements.
Well, Anaton's able to get a little bit of health back, obviously, from the Finker boost, but with the damage that's been done elsewhere, Cryon's found that new bout of confidence, and he's been able to lean into the firefights. He said you need to sort of lean into Cyclops. You need to try and meet them, see if you can put the pressure onto them, and, well, pressure has been put on. They've lost 2 bodies. They've lost their soft destruction. They've got to see if they can try and pick these pieces back up together and dedicate it into some sort of attack, and there's still everything left to go through. All the utilities still standing outside of 1 reinforced door, and, well, with a minute 10, it's got to be a quick plan B.
Things haven't gone Cyclops' way, and you mentioned there about having a plan. It seems to have stalled them quite significantly. Yes, they've lost the sledge. Yes, they've lost the Zephyr, but they've still got quite a lot of pushing power here. We can hear the exothermic charge going off as we anticipate that's going to be a push in, but realistically, who's there to back it up? Gatorada going to get himself onto the gym window. He's going to exchange shots there unbeknowingly, just trying to open up a couple of things to peek from, maybe even at a later point, but there isn't a lot left in the round, and with this split push coming in, it could just be a desperate attempt through logistics. The exterior wall into construction has been opened. You can, of course, hop through past that mirror window. The mirror window isn't great on that angle, realistically. Nades are going to start to fly, but I don't think they're going to see the same success here.
Leon sets himself up in a slightly new position as the shields start to be blown open. Prano's underneath, and that's the worry, because one more C4 and Anaton is entirely out the board. There's a hold, there's an angle, there's a wait. He's able to pass, and he's waiting for the call there. It's Rip Torn, but it's unfortunately a little bit late. 2-4 though. Anaton, he's able to take one with the pistol, goes for the second, can't quite make it work. Suzuki is all that's left. The diffuser is at the top of the stairs. It's an awkward firefight, and it's made even more awkward by dropping the round. 3-3, and even half, and Rogue closer and closer towards a full 3 points.
I would argue salvaged at points for Rogue. That wasn't as clean as we saw them play on Oregon. They've almost regressed a little bit into that lesser confident or less confident version of themselves. They aren't getting the same amount of kills that they were getting over on Oregon, and they've, for all accounts, had a pretty rough time on that defense. They've come out 3-3. They've really been able to scrape it together at the end, but it has taken all of that counterplay. It's taken all of those mind games. They've been baited into operator picks that turn out to be relatively useless. They've also read in really well into that Monty pick from time to time when it was brought. Equal split, 3-3. Now things get weird. We're going to bar and stage. This is not a sight that you get to see all too often.
It's not a sight that you get to see all too often. It's one of those things where it's new, and new is exciting. New is something new. You get to see ideas of how this stuff develops, and the only time you truly get the biggest taste of it is when you get the full stretch of international play. You get to see different ideas from different regions come together, because I could tell you how it's played in EU, and I could tell you roughly how it goes. But when regions butt heads is when Siege is by far at its most interesting, because Siege is a game of questions and creativity. What can we do, and how can we set it up to stop an onslaught onto these two sites? We have all these gadgets, all these folks, all this utility, -4. What can we piece together, and how do we grow from it?
Really isn't a very popular site, and see it trotted out here as a first pick speaks to maybe a level of trying to catch out Rogue. I'm sure that Rogue will be well aware of how they want to approach this, but I mean, just take a look at the site. It's entirely empty at the moment. Everybody is out and about trying to cause a nuisance for themselves. Leon could be in a prime position for a little bit of a hop-in. There's a bit of utility to get through, but for the meantime, the main approach is going to be in toward that stock. Leon's droning now, and if he calls this as clear, there's of course the rotating players to worry about, but we could see some of that quick play that we know Rogue capable of from Oregon.
Well, there's an idea of a little bit more opening, and the Super Shorty does some work to give you those wide angles from the kitchen side. It's a double-edged sword. Kitchen isn't the easiest to hold on to. Sure, if you want to have it for some modicum of time, you've got to make sure you get the verticality too, but at the same time, it's a couple of windows, a door, and a swing around, and you could probably get angles, pretty much everything apart from some corner of the meat locker. Rips is waiting for the escape as well, which does herald the idea that they want to try and force that player out, and if they can't win the fight on one side or push him with utility, they'll put bullets into him instead. Leon, in the meantime, goes for the wide swing. Sees if he can hope that someone's just holding the angle a little bit more statically, as Black Race seems to want to step up and offer some support here. It's so dangerous. Rips is lying in wait. Will he be able to tear off the first head that decides to dip itself over this no man's land? You assume a scrap is incoming, but through the chain link fence, it's not always the cleanest.
There's no one been in the site for the entirety of the round at this point. I'm surprised it's taken Leon to this point to hop himself in. He does, and Black Ray takes him down. Not sure if they knew of the alibi on the stairs. Prano now trying to get the plant down behind the B chassis. Where is the cover? Rips is, of course, watching that long angle, but Rips gets sat down in the dirt. That's 4 quick kills for Cyclops, and the diffuser now cold. A lot now lies in the hands of Crying, and well, 50 seconds, a cold diffuser inside of the site, and the defenders swarming onto him. This is only ever going to end one way.
I really liked that extension there. They just sort of opened all of the wall to that corridor. And if I'm going to say the way that we like to see this played in EU, that's not one of the things that you often see. It's more of a hold with a lot of like a sort of lockdown above, and you'll play against those angles in a sort of similar way, but that dedication towards kitchen and that stairs is not even really just a point of rotation, but a point of power and prominence to sort of say, we're stacked up here. As soon as you enter from lounge, or as soon as you hit that stage, the only thing that's going to be shining on you is off of my bullets.
I'd love to see the kill that was onto Rips. Because Rips was playing the chain link fence, so he was playing on the rappel. Now, that isn't an easy angle to challenge onto.
No.
If you get slammed on that angle, you have been slammed. Because you have only got a very small amount of your character actually available to be shot. It's usually just the head. Must have been quite a nice one. And again, I'm surprised at how slowly Rogue took that. We could see that the site was clear for the entirety of the round. Sure, there's crossfires in onto the site. We know this. But there are ways and means of trying to deal with that. We saw Leon overcommit, got taken out by Blackray. I don't think he knew that Blackray was there. I think they were just conscious of the player inside a kitchen. But there was definitely a lack of a man count. Where was everybody playing? That wasn't necessarily information that Rogue had to hand at that time. And it gives Cyclops a nice round on what is, by all accounts, a very off site. They've still got Church and Arsenal. They've still got Cache CCTV. They've got a couple of good sites here to really try and drag this one back.
A very quick technical pause as we make sure that everybody's good and ready. He doesn't want to be on camera. Not me, man. Oh, a hand warmer broke.
Disaster.
That was like charades.
We got it quickly as well.
We did get it very quickly. I got it because Medic said it into my ear.
I think I got it.
I think you would have got it. It was very well demonstrated, yeah. So they're just going to make sure, obviously, health and safety is the prime concern for all the players from accidentally damaging your own hand warmers. You got to be safe.
Maybe hand warmers in short supply and we're trying to get every last second of heat out of it.
Just put your hands on the desk and feel the warmth of the hand warmers. It's all being sorted for the player. Accidents happen. Don't worry, boys. Accidents happen.
Well, I'm glad that we're able to get this one sorted relatively quickly. Rogue look fairly chilled out, as they always do. Prano laying almost vertical in his chair again. I think he's really pushing the limit of how far back those things go.
It goes far back.
But, I mean, maybe he needs to crank that upright and get into a position of good posture as we are back into the mix of things. Round number 8 and downstairs we go. Cyclops successful in the bar site on their first defense, looking to make it 2-1 after another, no doubt, and looking to edge a bit of a lead because this is their time. They need to come up with a result here on Clubhouse.
That's entirely it. It needs to be their moment. Obviously, as we said before, we'll very quickly say it, it's a best-of-3 series, but if you get a 2-0, you get 3 points. If you just get a 2-1 victory and drop a map, you only get 2, and the team that took 1 map get 1 point. So at this point, Cyclops are only playing for a potential 2 points. But it's better than none. And even then, they're still technically playing for potential of 1 point, and they're importantly playing to take one away from Rogue, a team that lost all 3 yesterday in a showdown. If there is a team that they need to keep within arm's reach, this is probably one of them. Gator suffers quite early on the spray through, and it's just going to retreat down into blue as Rips decides to see if he can drive round. I think they wanted to set up a pinch, push and pull some of these roaming players away and force them into uncomfortable situations, but Rips wasn't quite in a position to punish the rotation back into the site just yet.
It's a slow start from Rogue as plenty of drone work needs to happen here to gather just exactly where everybody is going to be playing. Anderson still on that top floor as hatches do start to get opened. Ella, not the typical roamer that she once was. We typically more see a Vigil in that sort of role, or maybe something like a Mozzie to try and deny a little bit more of that utility. Crying just gets caught out there by the stun, by the Grismot. Anderson in position to try and challenge onto it, but nobody really giving themselves up just yet. The vertical holes that Anatom has got now to work with as well are of course going to assist. Any push that comes through is going to be quickly thwarted.
Oh, that drone is getting so much of a read on those 2 players. They suffered quite heavily to a grenade and was finished off by the next. There is still 1 more player there. They are well aware of this, and, well, they're well aware of this. Ace is able to clear that up from underneath, now puts the pressure onto the hatch itself. They drop behind the 3rd box to see if they can try and pinch it against. Takes the fight and wins it, goes for 1 more. Reveal, but at that point, Blackray is doing a bit of work on the other side. Prano's going to see if he can stick with the man advantage. Leon Gitch shows how that rectangle is done. The rappel locks in, but the round is won before it begins. There it is. 4-4, it's back and forth.
I enjoy Leon getting on to chain link rappel this time and it being like, that's how it's done.
That's how it's done.
That's how it's done, Rips. That's how you do it. You go upside down instead of being right ways up. It's a round that was desperately needed by Rogue. Great clear. The drone. You mentioned it at the time. provided so much information, and it was just something that went entirely unchecked. I mentioned at the time that Ela isn't the typical roamer. An advantage of bringing Vigil is that if you are going to keep an eye on your scoreboard and your points, if you activate your cloak and you look at the scoreboard and your points go up, you will see that you have been captured by a drone. You have been detected on drone. It's a great little method for seeing if there's a drone in the vicinity, and it can just give you a little bit more chance to search a bit more thoroughly, because a drone under a desk, as proved there, can be devastating. Aces with the hot drop in through the site as well. All of it worked together exceptionally well, and it was all enough for Cyclops to say, you know what, we ain't going there again. We're in fact going to go upstairs to gym and bedroom.
You don't always lock that hatch there, and you don't always put a shield on it as well, but to be fair, if you want to put a shield anywhere, locked onto the hatch inside gym is probably the best place, because sometimes you do see players playing behind the chassis regardless of the state of that hatch or not, and I guess it just gives them a little bit more width, because the chassis is the only real solid thing in that room apart from a weight set, but it's got a lot of holes in it, so it doesn't really make it easy or convenient to keep yourself a bit safe inside there. Having a little bit more of a mantle of safety in a very small space, it might work. But then you look at what's on the side of Rogue, it's Rips holding on to those Rotero drones. It is something where if they can find a gap in those mute jammers, they can very quickly turn that room once again back into a pretty deadly hellhole.
Prano going to get the wall open there into construction and rotate himself around, no doubt eyes firmly fixed on checking out Jacuzzi wall and what needs to be done in there. Frost being brought this time, Black Ray. Gives him a shield to play from. Shields, of course, very important. If you're not going to be bringing the Goyo, you need to find them from somewhere, as the whole defense sort of hinges around making sure that those shields are available. Anderson, a little bit thoroughly looking for the drones this time as opposed to last, and he really doesn't want to suffer to the same fate. The Rotero drones now are going to start to make their way through, but with mute jammers, it's a cautious run to just make sure that you don't get caught by the window. Instead, just throw yourself off the balcony. I mean, get rid of the drone and get rid of Black Ray. Leon is able to try and take that first fight successfully. Obviously, he had his drone and the intel come through there, and well, that's one gone, and he didn't even need to enter the building. There's suddenly a lot of pressure coming through on the next, and there it is, dropped from the heavens and sent to hell all the way across the bedroom. The spray comes through. It's Gatorado with a double locked in, and suddenly it's a 3 versus 1. He's massively injured underneath. We saw this exact same sort of scenario before, but Rogue was on the wrong end of it this time. They have the diffuser, they have safety, and they have so many places that they can try and stick this. Gatorado went for a rotate much earlier. Took a safer staircase and one with a lot more to work with, but they know his position. They're either side, and they don't really need to extend into this. He's injured. He's covered, and they still have 2 Roteros. If they really wanted to, they could go outside and just drive those dangerous devices onto the plant and just sort of leave it, let it tick down, but it's a less fun way for this to end. There's drones still sort of revealing positions, but Gatorada, yeah, I think he's come to terms with this round. It's probably quite wise. It's only going to end one way, and that's with Rogue getting the round. I think one of the more impressive things, when you start to see such an advantage for a team and you know that there's a Frost that's been played, you just start to worry how many players are going to fall into Frost mats. I was thinking in my head throughout that whole thing, I was like, I wonder if anyone's going to get caught in a Frost mat here. Fortunately, it did not happen, fortunately, at least for Rogue. They were able to keep an eagle eye out, and look at them, they're not leaving anything to chance. This is very well-disciplined siege that they are playing. 3 versus 1, and they still do not push. Barely any time left on the diffuser. They don't care. They just want the round win. They are willing to sit and hold the angles despite that huge advantage that they've got, because they know all you need in this game is a gun and a second, and you can make something happen.
Every site is open, but gym is where they think they can make things connect. They're going to see if they can double down. The change comes in the hands of a bandit. Okay, that's also not massively common scene. Usually it's sometimes with a castle, but that's not how they want to play it. I'm really curious to see where the dedication of this bandit comes through, because to be honest, the first push and failure was on the side of... it was on the side of construction. It was a window and a hatch that led to the opening kills. A bandit can't stop that. So what do they think is going to be the difference here? As I said, traditionally, where Gatorada is right now in Jacuzzi, that's where the bandit plays. But to do that without a castle, without that separation on the door, I mean, it's dangerous. Not impossible, but it's dangerous.
I'm confused. in a couple of ways. Hatch being reinforced in Gym for 1 is a little bit strange, a little bit weird.
They did it last time as well.
Yeah, if you're going to be bringing the C4s, you can kind of use that as a little bit of, do you want to come into Gym? Like, it's quite cool in here, but we're going to C4 you from below. And that's something that you often see being deployed. The pressure now that you put on yourself with playing the Bandit is you've just got to keep control of CCTV and cache. You've got no option. You have to have that as an area that is within your control. And typically that's kind of a first port of call for a lot of attackers in terms of where they're going to mount their attack. Demonstrated already. Crying, look at him. He's already on catwalk.
That's it. It's 20 seconds, and he's putting pressure now onto CC. He's creeping through, and there's a bit of fire that's coming back, but at the same time, that's so quick. And now it sort of just negates a lot of the potential that maybe could have played in a buffer. It's just Anaton here. But you look at what's hard and what's soft on this. Prano's going to crack the only hard bit of this hold. They have a rotation, and Anaton's going to be able to get out of there. But look, it's an angle straight through, and well, he slips away, and you just sort of wonder what the game was there. What was the setup? Has this worked? Will time tell? I'd say tune in for next week, but it seems like his pressure's going to keep on coming, forced all the way back to site.
Strange to not hold cache and CCTV as hard as, hard at all. They've deployed two reinforcements there. That's it. They haven't mute jammered. They've not done anything to really hold there for a significant period of time. And it's just giving it away to Rogue quite easily. Now they can let the drones work through. We are going to see a kill come in from Anaton as Leon tries to advance his way onto that logistics hatch, but that isn't going to be something that happens. It's going to force the rotate. It leaves Aces a little bit more exposed because now Cryan needs to make that, he needs to fill that gap, inside of logistics because there's still a player to be dealt with there.
Yeah, I mean, that body was just the swing on the fight, and that was the take that came through. There's the first grenade gone, the second should be able to pop through, then bounces it out and gets one. There's a replacement though, Galarada. I mean, I cannot believe it worked. It worked, and that is, for me, a bit of a shocking revelation.
I'm not quite sure what Rips is doing at the moment because he is a really key part in this entire puzzle. If he was holding on to the Gym window, you've got Suzy C there playing the shield. Get a Rotero drone in, destroy the shield, do something to try and disrupt that. There's going to be mute jammers, there's going to be obstacles, but you've got to try and assist. Say that, he's going to get C4'd straight away out of action. Aces, it's going to be down to you, Cryan and Prano, to come up with something here. It's an even 3 versus 3, and if CAG keep giving themselves away at the windows, it could be easier than you think.
I mean, that's it, is moments of madness sort of came into their favor, but now they can't quite seem to find a happy place to sit, and Rogue have been able to get themselves back to a body balance of everything sort of going wrong on the opposite side. Suddenly, they've got 15 seconds to see if they can keep it right, just the way to the end. Prano dives in, gets one, and is probably going to start trying to get the diffuser down. It's Black Gray over the side on the back line, gets one, gets two, and now with a handful of seconds, no! Prano just has that last bit of security, pushes Rogue onto series point. It was close, but not enough was thrown into the bike of Cyclops, so now they're gonna take it, put the kickstand down, take a minute, have a bit of a talk, and see if they can do anything to claw themselves to OT.
Is that the Prano effect? Am I allowed to say that, or am I not in the club just yet?
I mean, I think you're allowed.
I've heard tell of this Prano effect, that's all.
Yeah, a Prano effect, it's not a specific incident.
Okay.
It's not a specific moment, but it's a smorgasbord of data.
Beautiful word.
Thank you. It's my word of the day. It's a collection of data since the player joined the roster and how it's tied them together. And it's not, as Leon says in the interview, it's not just about the cheery character you see on your screen before us. A young gunner that is talented and vocal. That's the important part, because this is a very talented roster, Rogue. But it didn't have direction, especially towards the latter half of a round. It couldn't quite find a way to get it inside the game day for all the brilliant minds and guns they have. It was missing that voice to drive them towards it. And he came at a time that really brought that. Again, as Leon said, everybody stepped up. Everybody came together, but the Prano effect, it's like the Prano era, you know? But you want to...
We're just living in it.
Continue. We're just
living in it.
So for now, it's an effect, and it's a statistical effect.
It was a brilliant round there from Rogue. There was criticisms easily that you could give onto both sides for how that was played. You could say how Cyclops kind of peeked every window, didn't need to, aggressed when they didn't have to. And on the flip side, you could say, well, Rogue, you let yourself get bandit tricked. Like,
I know.
This is Six Invitational 2022. You let yourselves get bandit tricks, man. Like, please. That's it was hard to watch, especially given the circumstances. They come away with the round. It doesn't matter. Is there something they could have done to combat it? Sure. Did they absolutely need to? Well, maybe not. But it's a round that they got nonetheless. They've got 2 opportunities now at a full 3 points. After their performance yesterday, that is huge. And they need it desperately. Cyclops, on the other hand, looking a little bit down and out, staring down the barrel of a 7-4-7-4.
Who had that? Who had that result? Oh, it was Rogue yesterday. And I think that's the thing here is, if you're unaware, in the groups, only one team doesn't make it out of groups. The successful teams, they're split between the upper and lower bracket. And lower bracket, obviously, they only have one and done. And it's a lot of teams left to fight for that spot. So there's still always positioning, but still, only one team to not make it out of the group stage is kind of terrifying because, you know, if you're one of 2, you understand every game matters as much, but it does in that weird other way where a best of 3 is a slower build to that unfortunate end of, I guess, auto-relegation.
You don't want to be the one, do you?
Exactly.
No, but someone's got to be the one in every single group. And that's kind of the heart-wrenching thing about it all. Now, will Rogue have learnt lessons from previous? They went for a very late but direct push into the site when they attacked here in round number 7. It didn't work out too well for them. There was a presence in kitchen that they weren't aware of. There was a presence at the bottom of main stairs that they were equally unaware of. And they just kind of let themselves get collapsed on. Already we're seeing a bit of a different approach. There's some attention being paid upstairs to try and assist a little bit more of a fuller clear.
They're going to see if they can get a handle on these players, and I think that's one of the big drives of this team. And as we said before, you know, usually in EU you'll see a steadier hold up above. There was that width down below. I quite like the idea of in kitchen, but those plays aren't always the most successive thing. And here, Aces wants to get right above that. He was eyeing up the taste of logistics, but there's not an intense drive to finish it off because there's been a bit of adaptation here. It seems like a lot of bodies of Cyclops are actually going for the precious retake above. They want to see if they can put the pressure here onto the swing round. The pre-fire comes through, they've got the connection on the stairs, and then they pull back, give them food for thought. And they've left one player above, but the difference in control they have now, remember when those 4 kills flooded through in a second? Well, only one is in a position for a firefight. All the pre-fires that gun can offer does nothing if they come from the opposite side, and Prano takes care of one, doesn't quite get the revenge, was waiting for the ping of the player above. Pops way too early.
A C4 that will swing and miss. It still provides an angle to peek from, but is it going to be enough? Rogue in a good spot now after removing that pressure upstairs. Now let's try and work on the hatch and see if they can eye themselves up a plant here. There's still a heavy consideration that needs to be paid toward a retake. Aces, he's going to be pushing up from the bottom of the stairs. He sees somebody inside of the showers, gets himself in the skirmish, but it's going to be Crying that's got his back. Susie C finds himself downed in process, and with Black Ray pretty low, it puts a lot of pressure on a full health Anatom to try and hold on here inside of 30. Leon holding on to the main door, looks to try and push himself through. There's potential for a revive, but the plant's going down.
Plant's going down, 2 versus 5, and suddenly 45 seconds is all there is, and just one player to try and do it. Black Ray, no health, can't do anything to lock it off, and a flawless is how Rogue have responded to their day yesterday. 4-7-7-4s, and even 0 is the round difference after 2 days of play. But you know what the most precious thing is, and it ties into the conversation we had before. One team gets eliminated, the rest of this group, Liquid, FaZe, and SSG. This game between these 2 teams, let's be real, they weren't the ones eyeing up the top of this board, so it could be a more precious result than we are yet to see as the days progress.
You've got to look at it as potentially a 6-point game. That's ultimately what we've just seen there from Rogue, and they knew that coming into this. after their bounce back, I would argue and I would say that that's probably the biggest improvement we've seen in a short period of time. We haven't seen that many teams play back-to-back days yet. We're on day 2. It isn't going to be something that we're seeing a lot of until we get a little bit further in. But the way that Rogue have conducted themselves there, the confidence that we've seen them come out with, it would have been so easy for Rogue to have come into that fixture and really limped in after being battered and bruised by Liquid yesterday. They did exactly the opposite. They came in all guns a-blazing, and it was brilliant to watch.
So APAC haven't quite had the day that they had yesterday, and EU's been able to pick up some of the pieces. Other teams that have played for the first time, and teams like Rogue, as we've just seen, that have, as you said, had the precious team talk, found that bit of energy that drove them to this stage as well, and made sure that they can capitalize, because as we point towards it, sure, one group gets eliminated and they have a group of favorites that they've got to try and fight through. But 3 points is on the board for them. We're going to throw to a quick break before we are back with the analysts to break that game down.